What if the monster that won the Dance of the Dragons turned its hunger on the very house it had saved? Let's explore this alternate timeline together in the video. The realm called it peace, but peace was the wrong word for it. The lords who had bent to the boy king bent the other way and sent their sons to court and their gold to the crown, quickly and without complaint. Because every man had heard the tale of the black thing that ate the largest dragon in the world and then went home to sleep on its mountain and wait. They knelt, but they did not love the queen they knelt to, and the queen knew it. And the knowing sat at the foot of the Iron Throne with her like a hound that would not be sent away. In the Red Keep, Rhaenyra Targaryen summoned her eldest son and emptied the throne room of every other soul, and the two of them stood alone before the swords of the conqueror.
You cleared the hall. You only clear the hall when you mean to say a thing you don't want repeated. So say it, mother. I've been Prince of Dragonstone long enough to read your moods.
Then read this. Rhaenyra's last 3 letters from the island all say the same thing, and she buries it deeper each time so I won't take fright. The beast is harder to turn. The flights are no longer flights, she says. They are arguments. She points him east and he drifts west toward the fishing fleets. She tells him down and he climbs. She is winning the arguments still, but she is winning them by smaller margins every moon. And a woman does not write to you 3 times about a thing she has under control.
Then bring her home. Take her off the mountain, let the thing go wild on its rock, and rule the way kings ruled before dragons made us lazy.
You say that as though I haven't lain awake on it. Bring her home, and the beast goes wild on its rock. And a wild cannibal does not stay on its rock, Jace. It ranges, it hunts. And the first dragon it smells will be one of ours, because every other great dragon in the world is already dead or sworn to me. At least while she rides it, it goes where she points more often than not. Take her off it, and we don't lose a weapon. We lose the only voice it has ever once chosen to hear.
More often than not. Listen to yourself, mother. You're describing a coin she flips every dawn, and the day it lands wrong, she's dead, and there's a wild dragon eater loose on the very island where we keep our eggs and our children. That is the plan that holds the 7 kingdoms together, a coin.
And the morning she stops climbing that mountain is the morning 10,000 lords learn there was never a hand on the leash. No, there is no plan for a thing you cannot command and dare not kill, Jace. There is only a girl and her willingness, and the hope the willingness outlasts the hunger. That is the realm I am leaving you. Pray it holds until you're old enough to be cursed with it.
On the Black Island where it had all begun, the willingness was already losing ground. The cannibal had been a creature of the war, and the war had given him work that suited his nature. Vega over Shipbreaker Bay, the Gold Dragon and the Red at Rook's Rest, the chained hulls of the Triarchy at the Gullet. For 3 years, he had been the most fed monster in the history of the world. His hunger pointed outward at the enemies of a queen, by a girl who climbed his mountain every dawn. But the enemies were gone now, and a dragon eater with nothing left to hunt does not grow gentle. He grows restless, and a restless thing tests its fences. Rhaenyra learned how worn the fences were on an ordinary grey morning, when she took him up over the bay and felt him refuse her in the open air. She turned him for the open sea. He banked for the fishing fleet. She hauled the turn back with everything she had, the voice, the weight, the cord, and for 3 long heartbeats, the beast simply did not obey, sliding lower toward the little boats and their screaming crews, until something in him relented, and he climbed, not because she had won, but because the boats were small and he'd decided they weren't worth the bother. She brought him down shaking and told no one. A fortnight later, Grey Ghost died. Baela found her on the steps below the lair at first light, where Rhaenyra sat the way she always sat now, looking up.
There's blood on the rocks below the lair that isn't yours, and isn't a sheep's. And the fisherfolk have stopped working the eastern water again. Don't tell me he isn't hunting. Tell me what he's eating.
Grey Ghost. They found what was left of him at the foot of the mountain 4 days ago, burned and broken and half-eaten. And Sir Robert Quince wanted to write the Queen that some wild accident took him, and I let him write it, because the truth is worse. I felt it happen, Baela. I was asleep, and the satisfaction of it came down the cord like warmth off a hearth, and I woke knowing he'd hunted down the shyest dragon on this island and eaten him. Not for the war, not because I pointed him, but because there was nothing stopping him, and he was hungry. That is what he is when no one is steering. And lately, sister, no one is steering. He lets me ride. He has stopped letting me decide where.
Then steer harder. You climb up there every dawn. You tell everyone the 2 of you have an understanding.
We have an understanding about enemies. When I point him at a thing that wants us dead, he goes gladly, because his wants and mine run the same way in a war. That was always the bargain. Not that he obeys, but that we wanted the same blood. There is no war now. There is nothing left he wants, except the things you have spent 3 years breeding in warm sand for him. And every dawn, the gap between what he wants and what I want grows a little wider, and the cord I keep calling a leash just lies there slack in my hand. I never tamed him, Baela. I told you that the first night, and you didn't believe me. He let me ride, the way the tide lets you swim in it, right up until it decides to pull you under.
Then come down off these steps for 1 hour. Eat, sleep in a bed and not on cold stone. You cannot outstare a dragon. No one in the history of the world ever has.
I'm not trying to outstare him. I'm trying to be the last thing he sees before he sleeps, and the first when he wakes, so that when the old hunger comes for him, there's a face attached to the word no. That's the whole of my strategy, a face, and a voice he chooses to humor, and he is choosing to humor it less.
The truth she would not say to the family came down off the mountain a fortnight later, on a moonless night, when the hatcheries glowed faint with the heat of the buried eggs. For there were eggs on Dragonstone always, in the warm sand chambers beneath the smoking stone, the secret engine of House Targaryen, the reason a Targaryen child was laid in a cradle with a dragon's egg and not a wooden toy. 3 years of peace had filled those chambers, clutches warming in the dark, hatchlings barely the size of dogs, a pale, skittish young drake called Stormcloud, the queen's youngest, meant to ride one day. They were the lambs, and on that black night the wolf came down off the mountain and walked among them, and the keepers fled screaming. And by the time Rhaenyra reached the chambers, woken by the warmth that was wrongness pouring down the cord, 2 clutches were gone, and a hatchling lay broken on the sand, and the cannibal stood over the ruined nests with his green eyes lit like swamp fire and his maw wet.
Off. Get off them. Look at me, not the nests. Look at me, you old horror. These are not for you. Back up the mountain. I am telling you, no.
And for the first time in 3 years, he did not answer her. He held her gaze a long moment, the way he had held it in the lair on the day she claimed him. And then, almost gently, the way a man finishes a cup of wine he's been told to set down, he lowered his head and took 1 more egg into his jaws and swallowed it whole while he watched her watch him. Only then did he climb back up his mountain, leaving her in the wreck of the queen's hatcheries with the broken hatchling cooling at her feet, having learned the things she had refused to learn for 3 years, that she had never once given him an order he did not already want to obey, and that the leash she'd been holding had never been attached to anything at all. Baela found her there as the grey came up, still among the ruined nests, and did not touch her.
You'll have to tell the queen. There's no wild accident that empties 2 clutches and leaves a hatchling broken on the sand. She'll see it. She'll come.
I know she'll come. I'm standing here deciding what I tell her, and I keep arriving at the one thing I've never said to anyone but you, that I can't stop him, that I looked him in the eye and used the voice that turned him on, Vhagar, and he heard it, understood it, and ate another egg while he watched me, slowly, so I would understand he was choosing to. 3 years I've been the girl who tamed the cannibal. I let kings kneel to that story. It was never true for 1 morning of 1 day.
Then don't say that to all of them. Gods, Rhaenyra. Stand in front of that whole family and say the leash is a lie, and you don't just frighten them. You unmake the one thing holding the realm down. Every knee in Westeros stays bent because they believe a princess has that monster on a chain.
And if I let them keep believing it, they'll keep using him, keep pointing him at things and expecting him to be sheathed again like a sword. And one of those days, the thing they point him at will be too close to these nests, and he will not sheathe. The lie is the dangerous thing, Baela, not the truth. The truth is the only thing that might make them careful. So when she comes, I'm going to tell her, and I'll need you in the room, because you're the only one who's believed me from the first night, and I can't say it to all of them alone.
Then you won't. You never have. Now come away from the nests before the keepers find the most feared woman in the 7 kingdoms crying over an egg. Let them keep that part of the story at least.
The news reached the queen at supper, and within the day, the dragons of the family were on the wing toward Dragonstone. For this was not a thing to argue by letter. They gathered in the war room of the stone drum, Rhaenyra and Daemon, Jacaerys with the salt of the flight still in his hair, the old Princess Rhaenys who had buried more dragons and more children than any of them, Baela and Rhaena last, who came in grey-faced and stood rather than sat. And the argument that had been waiting 3 years broke open.
I'll say the thing none of you wishes to, and I'll say it as the queen and not as anyone's kin. That animal ate the future of our house in a single night. Not an enemy's dragon, ours. The mounts my grandchildren were to ride. I warned of this on the first day, the very first day, when a girl came to me wanting to climb that mountain, and I told her it was the wolf among the lambs, and she told me to pray the hand held. The hand did not hold. It was never holding. The beast must be put down before it learns it can do this whenever it likes.
Put down? Say how? Go on. I've killed more dragons than any man living, and I'd dearly love to hear which of you means to fly up that mountain and do it. Caraxes is half the dragon he was after the god's eye, and that thing ate Vhagar whole. Syrax is a yard bird. Meles is old. Vermax and Moondancer are children beside it. You'd be sending our dragons up a mountain one at a time to be eaten by the one creature in the world that specializes in eating dragons. And even if by some miracle you killed it, you'd have done the Green's work for them 3 years late, because the only reason this realm holds is that every lord in it lies awake afraid of the black wall on the Dragonmont. Kill the deterrent and you don't get peace. You get every knee in Westeros off the floor by summer.
Listen to it. We are debating whether to let a monster eat the future of our house, and your argument for letting it is that the monster is load-bearing, that the roof falls without it. When did we build a throne that needs a dragon eater holding up the roof?
The day a one-eyed boy climbed onto Vhagar, and the rest of us decided the answer to one monster was a worse one. We built it the morning we let your husband's daughter come down off that mountain, and we cheered, you loudest of all, because she'd won you a war no one else could. You didn't ask the cost then. You're asking now, because now the bill is your grandchildren's eggs and not your enemies' sons. I understand it. But do not pretend we ever had clean hands or a clean choice. We had neither.
You're both right, and that is the cruelty of it. I sat a horse outside a dragon pit once and watched men decide a weapon was worth any price, and I have spent the rest of my long life paying it. Hear an old woman. You cannot keep it. You cannot kill it. Both doors are walls, which means the question is not how we are rid of it, because we cannot be. The question is, who stands between it and us, and how long she can stand there, and what it costs her. And we are all of us in this room looking at the answer, and she is grey as ash, and on her feet, because she cannot bear to sit.
Then tell me plainly, since my good mother says you are the answer and not the problem. When you reached the nests, could you have stopped him had you come a moment sooner? Or would you have stood there, exactly as I am standing here, giving an order to a thing that has decided it no longer takes them?
In the war, I once pulled him off a man he meant to eat, hauled his head around by main force, because he was sated and biddable, and we wanted the same things that day. Yesterday, I stood 10 feet from his jaws and told him no, in the voice that has never once failed me, and he ate an egg to teach me what the voice is worth now. So no, Your Grace. I could not have stopped him a heartbeat sooner. I could only have watched it from closer. That is the whole of the change in him. And it is the only thing I came in here to make you understand. A year ago, he was a beast I rode. Now he is a beast that permits me to sit on him while he does as he pleases. And the permission thins by the moon.
Then I'll say my piece, and you may call me a boy for it. A house that feeds its own children to a monster, so its enemies stay frightened, has already lost the thing the throne was meant to protect. What are we keeping the realm for, if not the cradles in that hatchery? My mother says the beast ate our future in a night. I say we ate our future the day we decided the future was worth keeping a thing like that alive. If the only way to hold the 7 kingdoms is to keep a dragon-eating god fed and point it at our enemies and pray it never turns, then we are not kings. We are wardens of a prison, and we are the prisoners, and one day the bars give.
You all speak of him as a thing to be kept or killed or pointed, and not one of you has asked whether any of that is in our power at all. So here is the truth I've been swallowing for 3 years, in front of the Queen. I do not command him. I never have. In the war, our hungers ran the same way, and so it looked like obedience, and I let it look like that. There are no greens now. There is nothing left he wants except what you've bred in warm sand for him. And it is worse than that. He is harder to ride every moon. The flights are contests now. I turn him and he refuses. I point him down and he climbs. I am still winning, barely, by margins that shrink while I sleep. So do not ask me to control him. Ask me only whether I'll spend the rest of my life standing between him and your cradles, knowing I cannot stop him. Only distract him. Only be the more interesting thing in the room. Because that is the most any of us can buy. And I'll pay it. But I will not let you call it a leash anymore.
For a long moment, no one spoke, because she had set the comfortable lie on the table between them, and it lay there like the broken hatchling. Then Demon crossed the room and put his hand on his daughter's shoulder, and his voice, when it came, was not the warlord's but the father's.
Then we point it at nothing. We feed it. Sheep, cattle, whatever it takes. A herd a week, 10. I don't care what it beggars the crown lands. We keep the hunger so dull and so full the eggs never look worth the climb. And you go up that mountain every day and you are the more interesting thing in the room, exactly as you say, for as long as you can stand it. And the day you cannot, you tell me. That's the whole of the plan. It's a terrible plan. It's the only honest one anyone's offered, which is more than I can say for keeping or killing.
Then that's the plan, and I'll keep my end until it kills me or fails. But hear the one thing none of you has said, since we're being honest for once. A full beast is a patient beast. It is not a safe one. You can dull the hunger, you cannot end it. And the day someone gives him a reason to remember what the good food tastes like, a war, an enemy, a dragon worth the hunting, no herd in all the crown lands will hold him to that mountain. So feed him, beggar the realm in mutton. I'll help you do it. But pray nothing ever happens in these 7 kingdoms that needs me to point him at a dragon again. Because the morning I do that is the morning the bargain breaks, and there won't be sheep enough in the world to mend it.
It might even have worked, that grim bargain of meat and vigilance, had the world left a frightened dynasty alone with its monster. But one man had watched the black wall on the Dragonmont for 3 years too, and learned a different lesson from the dance than the lords who simply knelt. His name was Hugh Hammer, a blacksmith's bastard who in the desperate dragon-calling days of the war had walked up to the second largest dragon left in the world, put his hand on its bronze flank, and lived. Vermithor, the Bronze Fury, 80 years grown and vast as a hill, and now, with Vhagar dead and the cannibal a thing no man counted as a war dragon, because no man but a mad girl could ride it, Vermithor was simply the largest living dragon in the world, and a low-born bastard sat on his back. 3 years Hugh had bent his bronze knee and watched the great lords cringe before a queen who could not even ride the beast that frightened them, and he did the arithmetic they were too proud to do, that if a realm could be ruled by the fear of one dragon, it could be ruled by the fear of another, and his could be steered. By the time the news reached Dragonstone, the blacksmith bastard had 12 houses sworn to him and the largest dragon under the sky, and had begun, very quietly, to call himself a king. The council that gathered this time was grimmer, and Jacaeris flew the reports in and laid them on the war table without a word.
12 houses and growing because we gave them a reason. Every lord who rides to him says the same thing in different words, that they'll not spend their lives waiting to learn which way the black dragon flies, and that a king they can treat with beats a queen they can only fear. We made this, mother. We taught the whole realm a throne is just a question of whose dragon is most frightening, and a smith's bastard has learned the lesson and brought a bigger, frightening dragon. Vermithor is the largest living dragon in the world. There's only one thing larger and worse, and it's on a mountain eating our eggs.
Then the sum has one answer, and you'll make me be the one to say it. We have exactly one dragon that can kill Vermithor, and it's the same beast we spent a whole council deciding we dare not use and cannot kill. The rebellion ends the day the black wall appears over Hugh Hammer's host, and not one day before.
And there the bind closes. To put down the rebellion, I need the one weapon that wins. And the one weapon that wins is the same beast eating my grandchildren's manse. To use it, I must take its only keeper off her mountain and send her west, and leave the hatcheries, for as many days as the war takes, with nothing standing between them and the dark.
And there it is. The price comes due, exactly as I said it would, only sooner and crueler. Use the beast to save the realm, and you leave the cradles undefended for as long as the war takes. Keep it home to guard them, and the realm falls to a smith's boy on a bronze dragon, who then comes here, to this island, with that dragon. And what do you imagine the cannibal does when something the size of Vermithor lands on his mountain? He does not defend us. He hunts. We do not have a weapon and a shield, children. We have one creature, and it can be in one place, and wherever it is not, we bleed.
Then stop calling it a choice between guarding and fighting, because it is neither. It's a choice about which loss we can live with. And only one person here has to fly into the thing we decide. So decide quickly, and then hear me, because the part you keep leaving out is what happens after I win. And I will win. That's the one certainty in this foul reckoning. He'll eat Vermithor the way he ate Vhagar, gladly. Because for one morning, my hunger and his run the same way again. It's everything after the winning that should keep you awake. You have not seen him feed. I have. When he kills a dragon, he does not leave it. He lands on it, and he eats it. All of it. And there is no voice and no weight and no cord that turns him off a fresh kill. So I will go. I will end your rebellion. And you will not like what it shows the whole realm about what we keep on that mountain.
Then send me with her.
Child.
No, hear me. Because for 3 years I've been the small twin, the gentle one whose dragon looks like a hatchling beside her sisters. And I've made my peace with that. But I will not make my peace with sitting on a wall while she carries this alone. Send me and Moondancer west with Rhaenyra. Not to fight Vermithor. I know what I am and what my dragon is. To be her second pair of eyes. Her voice when she's too tired to use her own. The one person in the sky beside her who isn't afraid of her. Let me be the thing that isn't afraid, all the way to the riverlands and back. She kept me from being jealous once. Let me keep her from being alone now.
And Rhaenyra, who had not wept in 3 years, who had stood in the ruin of the hatcheries without a tear, looked at her twin across the war table, and something in her face came undone, just at the corners, and she nodded.
All right, you come, but you stay high, and you stay clear. And the moment it's done, and it will be ugly, sister, uglier than anything you've seen, you turn Moondancer for home, and you do not look back, and you do not come down for me. Swear it on Mother, or you stay on this wall.
I swear it on Mother. Now stop trying to send me home, and let's go end a Smith's pretensions before he gets comfortable on that bronze monster.
So it was decided badly, everyone knowing they were choosing which of 2 disasters to suffer. Demon would hold Dragonstone with Caraxes, Rhaenys with melees, Jacaerys with Vermax, ringing the hatcheries with every spear the island could muster, and praying the meat they'd gorged the cannibal with kept him dull the few days the war would take. And Rhaenyra would fly the cannibal west to do the one thing he was best in all the world at doing, hunt down and kill a dragon larger than himself, the one errand he would go on gladly. For the first time in 3 years, her hunger and his ran the same way. They came down on the riverlands out of a hard, bright morning, and Hugh Hammer's gathered host discovered all at once the difference between hearing about the Black Dragon and seeing it fill the sky. Vermithor rose to meet it, vast and bronze and unafraid, the old king's dragon who had never been beaten, and Rhaenyra felt the cord between her and her beast pull taut for the first time in 3 years. Not slack, not dead, singing. Baela brought Moondancer in for one last pass before the sky closed around them.
That is not Vhagar. I can see it from here. That thing is sound and whole and in its prime, and it's climbing at us like it means it. You told me you'd win. Tell me again, because I swore an oath to fly home and not come down for you. And I need to hear it once more before I'm asked to keep it.
I'll win, because Vermithor came here to fight, and my beast did not. Look how the bronze one climbs, straight, proud, certain, all that weight thrown upward to be the biggest thing in the sky. He spent 80 years being the strongest, and never once had to be clever about it. Mine has spent 100 years in a cave full of the bones of stronger, prouder things, and he learned the only trick that beats strength, patience. The blind side, and waiting for the proud one to overreach. Hugh Hammer brought a war dragon to fight a thing that doesn't fight, it hunts, and it's about to have the best morning of its long life.
And the worst of yours.
And the worst of mine. Now climb, and stay climbed, and whatever you see in that river when it's done, and it will not be quick or clean, you keep your oath.
What followed was a thing the realm would tell wrong for 100 years. The 2 dragons came together with a sound like a mountain breaking, and fell lock through the sky, bronze and black. And Vermithor was strong. Gods, he was strong. He got his jaws on the cannibal's throat and bore him down with all the weight of his 80 years, and the cannibal let him. He did not fight strength with strength. He twisted, gave ground he meant to give, and bled the bronze dragon's fury across the sky in great wheeling falls until Vermithor was breathing hard and Hugh Hammer was screaming for a killing blow that would not come. And when the bronze dragon overreached for the throat one last time, the black one was not where it should have been. He came up from underneath, from the blind place, with the patience of a thing that had eaten 100 dragons, and closed his jaws on the root of Vermithor's wing and did not let go. The bronze fury came down into the shallows, with a smith's bastard still strapped screaming to his back, and the black wall came down on top of him. And then Rhaenyra learned, in front of an entire army, exactly how much of the beast had ever been hers. He began to feed. There in the red shallows, with the rebel lords frozen on the bank and Baela wheeling helpless above, the cannibal tore into the dying bronze dragon and ate, and Rhaenyra hauled on him with everything she had. She used the voice that had turned him on Vargar, on the gold dragon, the voice he'd answered every day for 3 years. She beat her fists against the great black neck. She threw her whole weight into the turn and screamed at him to leave it. Leave it! It's dead. You've won. Leave it. And he did not so much as flick an ear. He fed the way a fire burns, without malice and without mercy, and without the smallest interest in the small thing shrieking on his back. And he did not stop until there was nothing of Vermithor worth the swallowing, and nothing of Hugh Hammer at all, while the men who had sworn their lives to a dragon king watched their king and his dragon both go down a black throat in the shallows of a river. Then they threw down their banners and they ran, and they carried the tale with them, that the queen's beast does not win battles, it eats them, and that the famous girl who tames it sat on its back and screamed, and the monster never even heard her. It was over by midday, a total victory save for one bronze dragon, one bastard king, and the last shred of the lie that had held the realm together. Rhaenyra circled the smoking river on her sated monster, and felt no triumph, only the old cold dread, because she could feel down the singing chord exactly how good the kill had been, how completely he had enjoyed himself, and she understood, wheeling there, that she had just reminded the most dangerous appetite in the world how much it loved to eat, and shown an entire army there was no hand on the leash. They turned for home, and somewhere over the narrow sea, Baela brought Moondancer in close enough to call across the wind, and what she saw in her sister's face made her call out before she decided to.
Talk to me. You won. The smith's dead. The lords are scattered. The realm is saved. So why do you look like a woman flying to a funeral?
Because I felt him remembering. The whole way home it's come up the cord. The same warmth I felt the night he ate Grey Ghost, the night he ate the eggs. He's happy, Baela. He hasn't been happy in 3 years, and now he is, because I took him off his dull mountain and his herd of bored sheep, and I gave him a dragon, a real one, the best meal he's had since Vagar, and I taught him the thing I've spent 3 years praying he'd forget, that the good food still exists, that it didn't all die in the war, that there are still dragons in the world worth the hunting, and we're flying home, right now, to an island with a mountain full of them, and I'm the one who just reminded him they're there.
Then we bury him in cattle. We do exactly what Father said.
He won't take cattle now. Would you want bread after a feast? And it is not only the hunger I woke today. It is what every man on that riverbank saw. They watched the queen's beast win, and then they watched it refuse to stop, and they watched me beat its neck bloody for nothing while it ate. By the time the ravens land, the whole realm will know the leash was a story we told children. You saw it, Baela. You saw me on his back, screaming, and you saw what my screaming was worth. I treated him like a weapon, a thing you draw and use and sheathe, and he is not a weapon. He is an appetite, and I just fed it the finest meal of its life and pointed it home toward a nest full of more. We tell them the truth the moment we land. No more leash, no more songs, and then I climb that mountain, and I do not come down, and you go back to Driftmark, and you live a whole life. You marry, you have children, you lay them in cradles with eggs beside them like our mother did with us, and you trust me to stand between the thing on the mountain and the smell of them for as long as I draw breath. That's the bargain I'm making with the rest of my life. The only way I can carry it up those steps each dawn is knowing you spent yours somewhere it could never reach. Don't argue, just let me have that one thing to climb for.
Dragonstone rose out of the sea ahead of them, black-walled and smoke-crowned, exactly as it had risen the first day the twins came to it as grieving girls. The cannibal did not go to the wall. He went to his mountain, slow and sated, and Rhaenyra slid down off him for what felt like the last easy descent she would ever make, and walked to where her father stood waiting, and Daemon took one look at his daughter's face and knew the victory had cost more than the war.
The ravens came ahead of you. Hewhammer dead, Vermithor dead. The rebel lords scattered before midday. They're already calling it the second time you saved the realm, and the singers are halfway through the verse. So tell me why you've come home looking like you lost.
Because the whole riverlands watched me lose. They watched me sit on his back after the kill and scream at him to stop feeding, and beat his neck bloody, and they watched him not hear a word of it. The lie is dead, father. By summer, every lord in Westeros will know the queen's beast eats what it beats, and that the girl who rides it has no more say in the matter than the meat does. And worse than that, far worse, I reminded him today. We told ourselves he was a weapon, a thing you put away. He is an appetite. For 3 years it slept because the only food it wanted was gone. All of it died in the dance, and the dull peace bored him toward the eggs the way a starving man eyes scraps. Today I gave him a feast and woke the hunger all the way up, and we are standing on an island with a mountain full of dragons, and the only thing between him and them is a girl he has stopped listening to.
Then we do what we said. The herds, the vigil, you on the mountain every dawn.
The plan was built for a bored beast, and I have unbored him. He won't take mutton for long now, not the way he did when he'd forgotten there was anything better. I have spent 3 years being the most interesting thing in an empty room, and the room is not empty anymore. I filled it myself this morning, with the memory of how good a dragon tastes.
Then what stands between him and the hatcheries now? Say it plainly. I've never heard you flinch from the plain version, and I need it now.
I do. Only me, not a leash. There was never a leash. You all watched that die in a river today. Only me on that mountain, every single day for the rest of my life, being the one thing in the world he would rather not eat, standing between a freshly woken hunger and a nest full of the future of our house, knowing the only reason it works on any given morning is that he chooses to let it. I won your war again today, and in winning it, I made the peace I have to keep so much harder that I do not know if I can keep it at all. That is the face of a woman who just understood she is never coming down off that mountain again.
Then you won't keep it alone. I'll come to the island, Moondancer and I, between Driftmark and here as often as the winds allow. Not to ride that mountain, I can't, but to be on the steps beside you when the watching gets too long.
You'll do no such thing. You'll go and live, and you'll let me have a reason to keep climbing. I told you that over the water, and I meant every word. The day my own sister starts keeping vigil over a monster's larder beside me is the day this thing has eaten 2 lives instead of 1, and I will not let it. Let it have mine. Spend yours somewhere it can never reach, and come once a year and tell me about your children, so that on the worst mornings I have something to picture besides his eyes.
And Baela, who had kept her oath all the way home, came and stood at her sister's other side, so that Rhaenyra stood between her father and her twin, with the Black Mountain at her back. And none of them had anything left to say, only to stand there in the wind while the smoke rose off the Dragonmont, and somewhere up in the dark, the most fed monster in the history of the world dreamed, for the first time in 3 years, of dragon. That's our theory. If Rhaenyra Targaryen had truly claimed the cannibal, then the Dance of the Dragons would not have been the end of her story. It would have been the easy part, because a monster that wins your war does not retire when the war is won, and it does not let go of a kill because a girl on its back is screaming, and a dynasty that learns to rule by the fear of one dragon teaches every ambitious soul in the realm to reach for a bigger one. The girl who tamed the cannibal was never the keeper of a weapon. She was the keeper of a hunger she could not command, and the only question left was whether she could keep standing between it and the cradles long enough for the next generation to inherit a realm, or whether House Targaryen had saved itself in the war only to be devoured, egg by egg, in the peace. Like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into the darkest corners of House Targaryen.